US President Joe Biden has dialed Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and threatened to condition support for Israel's offensive in Gaza, taking concrete steps to protect aid workers and civilians. The warning comes following a deadly Israeli strike that killed 7 aid workers of the NGO World Central Kitchen, or the WCK. Israel has claimed that the attack was a quote-unquote mistake. The United States, a lifelong supporter of Israel, has resisted pressure to withhold aid or halt the shipment of weapons to the country. US President Joe Biden's warning marked the first time he has threatened to potentially condition aid, a development that could change the dynamic of the nearly 6-month-old war. US Secretary of State Antony Blinken has said that Washington's policy on Gaza depends on immediate action by Israel to improve the humanitarian situation and the safety of civilians in the Gaza Strip. Blinken has said US President Joe Biden had held a call with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, addressing strikes on humanitarian workers and urging Israel to protect civilians along with an immediate ceasefire. Blinken further said a vote on multi-billion-dollar aid package for Ukraine held up in the US Congress could not come soon enough, and the allies had resolved to look at sending Kyiv more military aid, including air defenses, artillery, and munitions to combat Russia's invasion. As the international frustration grows over Israel's armed offensive in the Gaza Strip, the United Nations has made its strongest call for a ceasefire. The UN spokesperson expresses continued frustration over progress, saying the situation in Gaza is not going in the right direction.
We are doing in parallel.
Vice President Kamala Harris has announced awarding $20 billion in funding for thousands of climate and clean energy projects across the United States during a visit to Charlotte in North Carolina. The Environmental Protection Agency awarded federal Green Bank grants to 8 community development banks and NGOs to use on projects combating climate change. Kamala Harris has said that this is the first time in history that the federal government will provide billions of dollars directly to community lenders to finance local climate projects. Harris has made repeated trips to North Carolina this year as Democrats hope to win the state. They narrowly lost to Republican Donald Trump in the last presidential election. The White House has said that the US President Joe Biden will meet with families of workers who lost their lives in the Baltimore bridge collapse, hit by a container ship on March 26th. Meanwhile, the clearing work is underway to clear the wreckage of Baltimore's Francis Scott Bridge after a faltering cargo ship crashed into it, sending the span collapsing into the harbor and killing 6 construction workers who were thrown into the water. The 6 victims of the bridge collapse were all immigrants from Mexico and Central America who were fixing potholes on the road surface of the bridge when it collapsed on the night of March 26th. The authorities have opened 2 temporary channels to allow some shallow draft vessels such as barges and tugboats. President Joe Biden celebrates the 203rd anniversary of the Greek Independence Day with a reception at the White House, accompanied by the Archbishop The Archbishop of the Greek Orthodox Archdiocese of America, the US President, celebrated the ties between the Washington and the Athens and applauded the Greeks for being the developers of democracy. Biden called on the citizens of both nations to continue to fight for democracy. Well, it also praised President Biden for being an ally for their brothers and sisters in Ukraine. The authorities say thieves stole $30 million in a burglary at a Los Angeles money storage facility, calling it one of the largest cash robberies in city's history. The Los Angeles Police Department said that the burglary occurred on Sunday night at an unnamed facility in the Silmar area of the San Fernando Valley. Police officials say that the burglars were able to breach the building and the safe where the money was stored. The local media says the break-in is among the largest cash burglaries in the city history. The Israeli military has said that it has beefed up forces and heightened the readiness of its troops. The announcement comes at a time when Iran has vowed revenge for an airstrike on its embassy that killed 2 Iranian generals in the Syrian capital of Damascus, which is being widely blamed on Israel. Despite the new threats, Israel's Home Front Command has not ordered any changes in the public routine. The war between Israeli Defense Forces and Palestinian militant group Hamas began on October 7th, when the Hamas-led militants stormed into southern Israel. The Israeli police fired tear gas to disperse worshippers after dawn prayers at the Al-Aqsa Mosque compound in Jerusalem. The Israeli police issued a statement saying the officials took action after brief incidents of incitements. The Palestinian worshippers said that the Israeli authorities have restricted their access to the Al-Aqsa Mosque since the outbreak of Israel's military offensive against Hamas militias in Gaza in the aftermath of the October 7th attacks. The militias of the Palestinian militant group Hamas fired rockets towards southern Israel late on Thursday. Property damages or casualties were not reported immediately. According to Hamas's health ministry, over 33,000 Palestinians have been killed so far by Israel's military offensive in the Gaza Strip. The ministry has also said that over 75,000 civilians have been wounded since October 7th, when Hamas militants launched a surprise attack into Israel. The Palestinian militants killed some 1,200 people, mostly civilians, and took another 250 people as hostages. Hundreds of Jordanians and Palestinians continue to rally near the Israeli embassy in the capital of Amman for the second week in support of Palestinians in Gaza. The protesters chanted slogans, carried placards, and waved Palestinian flags. The agitated protesters also called for cancellation of Jordan-Israel peace treaty. Jordan's peace treaty with Israel is widely unpopular among many citizens who see normalization as betraying the rights of their Palestinian compatriots. So far, over 33,000 Palestinians have been killed by Israel's military offensive in the Gaza Strip. This is according to the Hamas's health ministry. And it marks the worst conflict between Israel and Hamas. It is election season in India, and the Indian National Congress has released its manifesto for the 2024 general elections, calling it Nyay Patra. According to the election manifesto, the grand old party promises minimum support price for farmers, growing cash crops, followed by promises of conducting caste survey, poverty eradication, defense readiness on the international borders, and repairing diplomatic ties with island nation of Maldives. The manifesto also says that the Congress party will take necessary steps to adjust its policy towards China and abolish the Agnipath scheme. The Lok Sabha elections will be held in 7 phases, with the first phase beginning from April 19th and ending on June 1st. The results will be announced on June 4th. Not very far from India, former Pakistani Prime Minister Imran Khan's party, Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf (PTI), has announced that it will stage a nationwide protest, along with a series of rallies across the country, against the alleged rigging in the Pakistan general elections held on February 8th. The PTI leader Asad Kaiser has announced that it will begin its nationwide rallies and protests from Pishin district in Balochistan province on April 12th, after Eid. Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban visited Bosnia on Thursday amid tensions caused by the separatist activity of pro-Russian leader Milorad Dodik. Orban, who's widely seen as Dodik's only friend inside the European Union, will be awarded a Medal of Honor in a special ceremony in Banja Luka on Friday. The Hungarian Prime Minister met the Bosnian chairwoman of the Council of Ministers of Bosnia and Herzegovina, Borjana Cristo, and members of the Bosnian presidency in Sarajevo. Citizens living in the Ukrainian city of Kharkiv have been dealing with power outages after a massive bombardment by Russian drones hit power infrastructure throughout the city. Russia launched 20 Shahed drones, of which 5 were shot down by Ukrainian armed forces, but 15 strikes still occurred on the Ukrainian soil. At least 4 people have been killed, 12 have been injured, but the number is not final as people continue to seek assistance. Russia continues to attack the energy infrastructure of the city of Kharkiv. Ecuador's national police has reported the arrest of 56 suspects during 71 raids in a simultaneous operation against gangs of alleged extortionists in 5 provinces of the country. Director of Investigation of the National Police, Gallo Erazo, said a simultaneous intervention was carried out in several provinces of the country in order to reduce the levels of crime and violence. Between January and March this year, the Ecuadorian police reported 1,697 cases of extortion and 335 cases of kidnappings. At least 14 people died and 2 were left injured in an accident involving a small bus and a lorry on a highway in West Bolivia's Oruro. According to the local officials, the dead included 1 child, 9 women and 4 men. According to the authorities, the driver of the truck that was transporting salt could have fallen asleep, resulting in losing control of the vehicle and colliding head-on with the bus, which was in the other lane. The truck driver, who is one of the 2 survivors in the crash, is in police custody and has been handed over to the public prosecutor's office. Meanwhile, Samsung Electronics reported a first quarter operating profit of approximately $4 billion, exceeding expectations due to a surge in chip prices driven by an AI demand. However, revenue fell short of estimates at approximately $52 billion. The chip division is expected to post its first profit in 5 quarters, with DRAM and NAND prices rising by 20% and 23% to 28% respectively. Samsung stock fell despite the positive news as investors await updates on its high-end memory chip business. The company aims to catch up in the high bandwidth memory or the HBM market and may benefit from potential price hikes following the Taiwan earthquake. In its mobile business, Samsung likely saw solid profits boosted by sales of its Galaxy S24 smartphones, with an estimated 57 million units shipped and a 30% increase in average selling price. Also from the world of business, Asian shares dipped amid Fed officials' hawkish comments and West Asia tensions. Brent futures stayed above $90 due to geopolitical concerns. Wall Street's late tumble affected sentiment. Investors await US jobs data. Fed's stance on rate cuts varied, supporting the dollar. Fed fund figures suggest less easing than previously priced in the US Treasury struggle, with yields near 3-month highs. Brent crude remains high. Gold retreated from record highs. US job growth is likely slowed in March, but wage gains remained elevated, indicating a robust economy and potentially delaying Fed rate cuts. Payrolls are expected to increase by 200,000, with unemployment steady below 4%. Financial conditions ease aid hiring, especially in construction. Despite softer household survey data, increased immigration supports labor supply. Immigration projections may influence future job growth estimates, allowing the Fed room to maintain a stronger economy before considering rate cuts. Fed Chair Powell reiterated no rush to cut rates despite market expectations. Wage growth is forecast at 0.3% monthly and 4.1% annually, aligned with Fed's inflation target. For all the latest news, download the WION app and subscribe to our YouTube channel.